Friends, Dr. Mark Rhodes again here, and I want to pick up with part 3 of hormones at menopause. In the first two parts, the two videos preceding this, we discussed that the main hormone that drops leading up to menopause will be progesterone, not the estrogens. Although a few women might benefit from a small amount of estrogen therapy, the other 90 or 95% of them would be actually harmed by giving them estrogens that would put them in a state of more estrogen dominance. We also discussed that how the low progesterone results in higher estrogen dominance and reduction in the estrogen receptor. So a woman feels like she's estrogen deficient is because there's not so many receptors and maybe they're not so sensitive. So sometimes the solution, you'll find a lot of doctors will just automatically these days give progesterone. That hasn't been true through the ages. If we're talking about most of the 20th century and the first part of the 21st century, doctors have been leaning toward giving estrogen. And the reason estrogens work is because the estrogen receptors are not so sensitive, not so numerous, and if you pour in the estrogen, you can actually stimulate and relieve some symptoms. The problem with that is if you're not monitoring, and many doctors don't monitor properly, you're actually harming your female patient by giving her estrogen because she's already estrogen dominant. Now, those estrogens might be in the form of synthetics, in other words, non-human molecules that are created in the lab. They might be in the form of horse estrogens. If you're on Premarin, whether you know it or not, you're taking horse estrogens, and it's a variety. It's not just one, it's a variety, and of course they're not human, but the synthetics and the horse estrogens can dock, so to speak, like the space shuttle docking at the space station. They dock at the receptor sites on the cells and actually produce a connection there. So that's why some of the estrogen-like substances can actually be beneficial even when a person's in estrogen dominance. Now, the next category after synthetics and horse estrogens is going to be what the word you're going to be very familiar with, bioidenticals. And even though those hormones come from plants, they are exactly the hormone that the human body produces and knows what to do with in terms of using at the cellular level. Docking with the receptors and doing the right thing, sending the right messages. And the detox system knows how to metabolize the bioidenticals and get rid of them. But, I need to tell you that the best doctors use the least amount of hormone. And those are the kind of doctors you want to seek out. And, there's more and more of them. I've trained 8,000 to 10,000 myself. And, other people kind of like me are training people in the proper way. Some of my students are training, and some of the webinars that you'll see going around are actually my students, and I'm very proud of them for putting the pieces together well, using some of the information I gave them. Of course, they're brilliant to begin with, and they're synthesizing all the pieces and putting together fantastic webinars. Like I say, the best doctors use the least amount of hormones. The body wants to be healthy. So if you support the organs and tissues with what they need to operate well, they operate well. That's just the way we're designed. It's the way we're supposed to be. And so after menopause, the ovaries really don't produce much. And so it comes down to where do the hormones that let a woman that's beyond menopause, where do those come from? And from a functional point of view, how can we help those organs and tissues produce what they're supposed to? Well, the main place that the ovarian hormones came from when she's cycling are the ovaries, a little bit by the adrenals. Now, after she's not cycling and the ovaries are pretty much dormant, we're coming down to the adrenals. And the adrenals are what organs allow her to cope with the stressors in her life. And I can tell you, every perimenopausal and every postmenopausal, if you're a doctor, every patient that you get that's in that time of life, you'll need to support adrenals because they need to be working as well as you can get them to work. So whether, I'm not talking about giving hormone, hardly ever giving hormone, but supporting the adrenals so they can do their job. Some other buzzwords I need to bring up, the pregnenolone steal. I'll boil that down to a simple concept. A woman under stress takes the precursor to progesterone and converts it to the adrenal hormone cortisol to help cope with that stress. That's why a woman under stress has less and less progesterone, because all the building blocks, the precursors, are moved toward adrenal function and away from ovarian function. So that's something I hadn't touched on before. It's also, we support the adrenals always. Some patients, and the vast majority these days, because I know more than I did 20 years ago, I do a lot of brain support. So I'm actually supporting the pituitary and what's called the hypothalamus, which is an organ that functions, it's in the brain, but it functions above the pituitary. The hypothalamus is what monitors hormone levels in the body and sends the signals to the pituitary, which then sends its signals like FSH and LH to the ovaries. And if the ovaries aren't functional, typically the FSH and LH are high, screaming, please produce more. FSH calls for estradiol, LH calls for progesterone. So it's the call. But that's also why a doctor can't just test your FSH once around menopause and say, aha, you're postmenopausal, or you're going into menopause soon. The actual pituitary hormones FSH and LH fluctuate every day or every few days for a year or two after the last period. So we do multiple samples. It's always the best way. You get more data, you do your better detective work, and you can help the patient so much better. So we will But I wanted to tell you, I may have alluded to this earlier, but it's kind of like monitoring your body is kind of like monitoring your car. You want to test the monitoring hormone levels and function in a human body, whether it's a woman or a man, or a kid, and whatever stage of life the woman is in, we take a slightly different approach. We'll look at adrenal function virtually always. If she's cycling, the female cycle, or less than 2 years after the last period, I want multiple measurements of brain hormones and ovarian hormones. I can live with adrenal hormones taken on a single day, but we'll take multiple hormones during that day. So the adrenal test is called the Adrenal Stress Index. It's the panel that started the whole salivary hormone industry back in the late 80s. So it's been around a while, but it's what opened the door to the whole industry of salivary hormone collection and interpretation. And I had the privilege of being in on that that measures hormones throughout the whole cycle. When I say the cycle, I'm talking about the 28-day cycle, give or take several days, depending on her female hormone health. And if she's 2 years past her last period, we'll use the expanded postmenopause panel that measures 8 hormones, 6 from adrenals and ovaries. Let's see, 2 from adrenals, 4 from ovaries, And if her ovaries are not working, then they're all adrenal. And then 2 pituitary hormones. The female hormone panel measures up to 11 samples separated by 2 or 3 or 4 days to catch the whole cycle. The adrenal panel, adrenal stress index, measures cortisol 4 times in a day. And if we're really wanting to focus on bone health, we use the bone health panel, which measures adrenal hormones, ovarian hormones, pituitary hormones, and a parameter called the DPD for short. It's what measures today's bone loss. If you do a bone scan like a DEXA scan, that measures historic bone loss. And if you do the DPD, that measures today's rate of bone loss. So if you can get that number down so that she's not losing much bone today, you can actually see bone increase. So you might go from a bad DEXA scan to a good DEXA scan. That's the goal, healthy bones. And honestly, if you address all these, hormone, heart health, you name it. So that's the goal. Help her be the best she can be, the healthiest she can be. And if you're listening to, I'm wrapping this up. If you're listening to this part 3 on my blog, you'll see contact information for me. Please give me a call, whether you're a doctor or a patient. I can help you take the next step, either in helping you be a better doctor and help you help work with your patients, or if you're a patient needing some proper hormone testing and monitoring, give me a call and we'll talk and we'll get you all set up. Now, if you're listening to this on YouTube or somewhere else, I will put contact information below the video. So that's all the points I wanted to touch on. Have a great day. I want to help you live a healthier life. If you're a doctor, I want you to help your patients. That magnifies my efforts by manyfold, hundreds. You'll see hundreds for every one that I can see. So I'm very proud that I got to train thousands of doctors because of my effort. Well, God bless, take care, and I will see you on the next post.